Hello YouTubers, and welcome to a very special edition here on my YouTube channel, DE Fan 3D, coming at you out here with a very big video. And we're gonna take you guys down a trip down memory lane. Starting out with the outfit you see here, but there's kind of a theme with this. I've been very fortunate and blessed in my lifetime to have come across and seen some stuff that I know I'll never see again, and stuff that is very hard to find nowadays. And I've just been super fortunate and very lucky in certain situations to accumulate gear like this. So my history with Dick Trickle, it's from 2007 to 2002, and 2002 was a big year for me, coming off of the year 2001, which is a year that I would really like to forget. But certain situations in my life I've actually come across it to kind of help me get through some of the dark times of 2001. But 2002 was a pretty decent year, and certain highlights of my life, especially the first big race of my life, Labor Day Monday of September 2nd of 2002, the day before I went to Pearl Ridge Elementary as a first grader. Started out my school year in a pretty big way at the Miller Lake 300 at the Minnesota State Fair Speedway track, which is now disbanded and destroyed beyond recognition. The only thing that I recognize is, of course, the grandstands, the front stretch, part of pit road, and the bandshell stage that they have there where they used to ring the victory bell after every state fair event. And kind of sucks that the last races from this event, but I was very fortunate to come across a few items in my life to kind of help me out, rekindle that memory, starting out with the actual Ticketmaster ticket right here. A little bit closer so you guys can pause the video if you want to read that. And of course, the ticket ain't good without the program book. And of course, there's Dick Trickle's photo on the front there, and Kevin Sawinski with the same car he ran there in 2002 for Lefebvre. That car had a number 1. This is the year prior when he did win his last event there, when Lefebvre finished 1-2, because Mike Garvey drove the 1 car in 2000 when they finished 1-2. The only time that Lefebvre of Minnesota ever finished at their home track 1-2, and came in 2001. So, which is pretty cool. Which, for stats, was pretty a big year between 2001 and 2002. The champion of 2001 won 10 races and picked up a lot of good points, and there was a blue number 9 car that was driven by Johnny Sauter. Johnny was at this event, started dead last. I think he finished 28th, 25th, somewhere in there, and actually did a pretty good job keeping the nose clean for 300 laps, which is the longest race I ever saw in my life, is 300. I've never seen a race, well, actually one higher than that though. I've been to a 400 lap race, and I was the next year at the Labor Day event at Elko Speedway of 2003, and again in 2004 when they did 400 laps for the ASA event there. So I have been to a 400 lap event, and but that was pretty neat. And Mike Garvey actually wound up winning both of those events in the 17 Janikin car for Fitzgerald Bradshaw Racing, which is the team that Jerry Bradshaw owned with Janikin. And that was pretty sweet. After coming off a Tecumseh W.J. Clements Black 17 that he drove in 2002, the team that he got to after he left Lefebvre. And then there was a secondary backup car to that 17, was number 77. That was driven by a different driver at Salem Speedway in Salem, Indiana. I want to say that's correct. And then at the State Fair event, there was another driver that drove this car that wound up winning a track feature event on Saturday night before the Labor Day event of 2002, and I had the driver autograph it. This is the autograph page, and if you see 77 on this, you'll see the number 41 as well. And that 4177 driver is none other than Donnie the Rocket Reavers, who is a 9-time Elko champion, and who wound up winning the Czech Championship, I believe, that year of 2002. And so that was pretty cool. And I think he also backed it up in 2001. I know his first one came in 2000, but I remember Donnie winning a lot of Czech championships in my lifetime at Elko, and it's pretty special. The only one that I'm bummed about on here is not having Dick Trickle, but Jason Schreiner's on here in car 01, Tim Olson in car 79, Steve Carlson in car 36, Paul Payne 94, number 9 Johnny Sauter, 1551 Joey Miller, 21 Dan Fredrickson, number 1 Kevin Sawinski, and then 4177 Donnie Reavers. So I was able to fortunate to track down all these guys between Elko and La Crosse Speedway Fairgrounds track and get them to autograph this. And the only two that I really wish that were on here was Joey Clanton and Gary St. Amant. And also too, if you look at the autograph page, that is Clanton's car, and if you see in the background, it's kind of ghosted out, but you can see the retaining wall is red, white, red, white. That was shot at Elko Speedway of 2002, and I was at that event a few months prior before this event took place. That race was 300 laps. They had 29 cars there. When I went to the State Fair event, there was 33, and I was like, holy smoke. That was the biggest field I ever saw in my life. And then I saw it at Elko again in 2003 with 33, and Rich Bickle Jr. and Dick Trickle were there in car 99 and 42. And Trickle, of course, was in 99. Rich was in 42, and I was like, holy. And it was cool because at one point they were side by side. You can look this race up on YouTube and rewatch it, but I loved it at 7 years old. And at one point, Dick is on the outside, Rich is on the outside, and the announcer in the press box said, and then the inside, outside, coming out of turns 3 and 4 is Rich Bickle Jr. and Dick Trickle. I'm like, is that legal to say that and not get in trouble? Like, that sounds really dirty. But being 7 years old and even hearing the name when I was 6 in 2002, I was like, dang, who would? That's very iconic. So that was something else right there, but it was pretty cool. And so very fortunate to have this. And getting back to Joey Clanton and Gary St. Amant, so Johnny won 10 races in 2001, swept that championship pretty handedly, got the Busch deal then right of 2002 with AC Delco, and when this race took place, when Johnny drove the blue number 9 Gainer Mountain car, his team was his Busch AC Delco team, which there was 2 teams that had AC Delco drivers, of course Johnny, but then the 7 at Gary St. Amant, because his car was blue with the AC Delco crew crewing the car. And it was kind of backwards a little bit, but it was really neat to see a Busch team there. And that was my first experience though with ASA, because I saw this on the TNN network on my TV, but I still wasn't grasping what this series was, because without looking at the logo and watching on TNN, I just thought it was a glorified ARCA Busch race, maybe glorified Cup cars, because to me they looked about the same. Yeah, even though that these cars are sought after the Mid-Am series that they run out, those are the same exact cars that ASA had. And some of them are even the older ASA cars, they just have new paint jobs on them, rebranding, but they're still the same car like they were, which is very neat. And they're still the big fiberglass bulky bodies that you see on the cover here of Sawinski's 21. But they're very stylish, very pretty, and those Mid-Am cars hold a special place in my heart. And but I was like, this is really interesting. I'm like, Dad, what is this series? Is this Busch or Cup or ARCA? He goes, oh, this is ASA. I'm like, ASA, what's that? He goes, American Speed Association. I'm like, okay. So then when I got older, then I was around all these guys like I am now. then it clicked. So then I understood what it was, and I'm very honored to have this. And good luck trying to find one of these, because this is really rare. And it's special to me too, because there's John Andretti's 43 car, and God bless him. So 2002 championship, Joey Clanton had several wins. Gary St. Amant had the big one. It took him 17 years to win this event, like it took Darrell Walsh to win Daytona 500, and winning this race is like winning the Daytona 500. And the cool thing about this track at the State Fair was it's the same size as Bristol. And sadly, the Fair Board decided to tear the track up because they were going to renovate the grandstands and they were going to repave it in 2003. But the Fair Board decided, the grandstands was way longer than the track was. If it started as a horse track, it got paved in 1964. It was left paved until 2002. So it looked like the old Talladega Daytona tracks before they repaved them, and had track sealer on it. It was all cracked up. I'll never forget that asphalt. That was really banged up, but those were priceless gems. But they decided to bulldoze majority of it. In fact, the grandstand and the catch fence was really iconic to that track, because all it was like going to a baseball field and you see the back, like the backing of the fence line is all blacked out with that nylon stretchy stuff that they have. That's what it was for the grandstands at the State Fair. It was just that black band stuff that they had. I don't know what material that is, but it's the black fabric alignment stuff. That was aligned all around there. I'm like, that is not a very good durable catch fence. But I mean, it held up pretty good. But the wall was beautiful. I still remember seeing the Miller Lite 300, and the big bulky words Minnesota State Fair Speedway, and I'm just like, that backstretch wall was very iconic. And I still see that, not just in my dreams, sometimes when I go to bed, but certainly watching the replay, I still never forget that backstretch wall. That was like going to Elko and seeing the red-white pattern on there, and that's very distinctive. So that was really neat to see that only once in my life, and but I got it up on a lot of people. And Clanton going to the Winchester 400 for 400 laps there was pretty tight with Gary St. Amant after the race was over when the points were checked out. Clanton won the Czech championship over Gary St. Amant by 1 point. Closest point battle in history of ASA. And that hasn't, and of course, that wasn't touched after, since, and beforehand. So 2002 championship was very, very, very big, and that was competitive, and that was by far the coolest series I ever saw in my life in 2002, besides what Tony Stewart did. And Tony Stewart had a really up and down 2002. Of course, the tabloids were all over him at the Brickyard after he smacked that reporter, which I'll never forget hearing about that and seeing that. But also him wrecking out or having a problem. I think he blew his engine in the 2002 Daytona 500, but he still wound up winning the championship for Gibbs that year. And Tony had a pretty good later on, especially winning at Atlanta for his first time in 2002, after all the years that he's seen Bobby Labonte win there. So that was pretty neat seeing that. And that was a pretty tight battle with him, Jimmy Johnson, Kevin Harvick, and Dale Earnhardt Jr., and especially Jimmy Johnson being up there as a rookie of 2002, and that was pretty sweet. And Ryan Newman was also up there as well, who wound up winning the Ray Bestis Rookie of the Year award of 2002, and that was pretty neat. So, but yeah, there were some pretty young guns up in that event there, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, not only was the NASCAR series fun, but so was this, and definitely holds a special place in my heart for that. And so 2002, my mom took this photo. I'm in the red Dale Earnhardt Jr. hat. I'm next to my grandfather in the white Dale Earnhardt shirt. That's my brother in the Tony Stewart hat, and next to my brother is my dad. So my mom took the photo. And of course, those grandstands are still there, but it's not as fun as it used to be, of course. And so that was pretty neat. And then getting to Dick Trickle now here. this car's from 2001, but it's still the same car he ran in 2002. Even the trailer is still the same. In fact, this trailer has a back history. The last time this trailer was used was in 2007 for the Papa John's car at Oktoberfest at La Crosse for Oktoberfest 200 weekend, and that White Knight to the King trailer was used for the Papa John's Famous Dave's car, as well as the Goldie car with the 5-star Monte Carlo body of 2004. I saw that car race at Illico as well, and then there's Trickle's 2001 ASA Monte Carlo 5-star body fiberglass car with EF Goodrich radial tires. And when I first saw that car, I thought, is that John Andretti? Because that looks like a pretty good Petty Cheerios font. And that's what was throwing me off. But now I've come and realized that, that's built a lot different than a Cup car. But the styling really threw me off right there. But it was so similar, though. I mean, I know that it's different body lineup, but they look so similar. And but it was pretty good for the time there, and so that was pretty neat. And now going back, old timers right here, 1988, 1989 was a pretty big year. Starting out the year with Bobby Allison, of course, winning the 1988 Daytona 500 in the 12th car, and Bobby Hillin Jr. in the 8th. And then of course we get to June, and then Pocono happens. Bobby Allison, the 12th car is out, and then just ran the 8th car for the remainder of 1988. Well, then in 1989, they get the 2-car team going, and the 12 becomes 84. Hillin drove for a while, and same for, I think, Mike Alexander, I think I got the name right. He drove it for a while, but then Dick Trickle never wanting to do NASCAR because he was so good on the short tracks. In fact, he was building another Goldie car in 1989 for a couple of races he was going to do. And while building that car in the process, there was a lot of Wisconsin people on that Miller Lite team. And one of the guys gave him a call and said, "Hey Dick, we're needing some very big help out here. Can you come down to Charlotte and help us out with the 84 Miller Lite High Life team?" And Dick's like, "You know what? I think I can be the one to maybe get the job done." And he came down for 1 race, 2 races, 3 races, and then eventually stuck. And that's that car at North Wilkesboro with Dick's autograph on it. And of course matching the one that I have on the shirt, and then matching the one that's on my hat with Bobby Allison and Bobby Hillin's autograph from the 1988-89 season. So this is a very rare hat, and pretty honored to have it. Same for the t-shirt of the 1989 Rookie of the Year, Dick Trickle, with both autographs on the hat. So I'm pretty stoked about that. And then in 2003 for the Slinger Nationals, Dick Trickle, I didn't know about this, but apparently he was able to get a hold of a car that another guy owned, and he really wanted Dick to try it out. So Dick came down and drove a Dodge Intrepid, which was kind of interesting, but there was another gentleman next to him in a black 5-star Monte Carlo that was kind of his protege and mentor a little bit. They were coming up about the same years, and I think this driver started around his career around 1970s, but I know that he was pretty competitive in 1977, and never won. And both of these guys drove Cup cars. They never did win a Cup race, but they both had pretty good finishes. But definitely, this certain driver did a really good job in 1998, finishing inside top 5 at Martinsville in the fall, and that was the number 98 RCA car. I'm going to say the sponsorship was to that, but that was the. This is from 2003 with the 99 45 car. In the 99, it's the White Knight Dick Trickle. in the 45 car, it's Rich Bickle Jr. at Slinger for the Slinger Nationals of 2003. So that was pretty sweet to accumulate this photo. And I've got to meet Rich in my life. I never got to meet Dick, but get the photo with both is pretty neat. And I never saw the Blue 99 race at Elko. Kind of wish it did, but it's kind of sweet. In fact, the Blue 99 car reminds me of another driver of 2003 that also drove a Dodge at the same time at Elko Speedway, which kind of threw me for a loop there for a bit, with this driver in car late model class number 11 being racing Jason Schneider. With, I believe he had an actually unsponsored deal, because that was the year he didn't have Hooters on deck, but it was really bizarre to see Jason in a 5-star Dodge and Trip, and I was like, whoa! So, but then 04 and 05 he went back to Chevrolet, so that was good to see that, but Jason never did drive a Toyota Camry, thank goodness. So I was really happy about that. And then with having Dick Trickle, Bobby Allison, and Bobby Hillin Jr.'s autograph, that's pretty special, but it gets better. For a good amount of money at an antique store a few years back for $20, I was able to accumulate this certain hat with STP with the Richard Petty King 7 Championship 7 Day 2500 victory hat right there. So to get his autograph, I'm wanting to say this hat maybe been the year of 1992 as retirement, but definitely an honor to have his autograph. And then this hat I got for free thanks to my grandfather, and this hat is from the year of 1994. And then there's certain autographs that are on here that are newer than this one. But the backstory behind this hat before I show it, you have to go back to the very first Brickyard race of 1994 for the Brickyard 400. And so after the race was over, my grandfather walked down with his buddy to pit road. He walked straight to this 1994 black Chevy Lumina that had GM Goodwrench on the hood and had a white number 3 on the side, and walked up to 6-time Cup champ Dale Earnhardt and said, "Hey Dale, can you autograph my hat?" No, you want Jeff Gordon's autograph because he wound up winning this race today. Well, Dale, you'll win it next year in 1995. Give me that Sharpie. Dale signs the one side. Come August of 2001, I think 17th or 16th, I do have the ticket. Don't have it out here with me, but it's in my bedroom. My grandfather got to meet Richard Childress and Chocolate Myers at a dinner party. Brought the hat, and he's like, "Richard, can you autograph the other side of the hat?" Richard signs the other side. When it was my 13th birthday of 2009, I wound up getting the hat. And in 2023, yeah, I want to say that's correct. Yeah, or no, or was it last year? No, 2023. Yeah, it wasn't last year, it was the year before. But yeah, in 2023, or actually it might have been last year. I'm trying to think. No, it was 2023. So yeah, so in 2023, Frankie Muniz comes to Elko, of course. That was the year he was driving the 30 car in ARCA. And knowing his backstory with NASCAR, I want to bring the hat with me, and along with the t-shirt, but I'm showing the hat first before I show the other stuff eventually. But I walked up to Frankie and I said, "You and me have a connection that is pretty big in my life, and it's unfortunate we had to see the same thing, except you were at the track that day and I was on my grandfather's house on February 18th of 2001. I remember the day you were riding shotgun in that Pontiac Zaber SUV, and I really envied you on Age of Cody Banks 1 and 2. But I'm not just having you sign the movies, but I want you to autograph a certain hat for me." Frankie looks at me and goes, "Oh man, I can't sign that." I said, hey, you were in the pace car. Dale talked to you about Mulligan in the middle and about how it rekindled him and Taylor's relationship. And I was watching all of that at my grandfather's house in Bloomington, just up the road from Elko here. And I need this to be coming together. So give me that trophy. Frankie Muniz autographed the top of it. And Richard and Dale Earnhardt's autograph are right there on the front bill. And the good thing about it is I only wore this at once, but a few years ago, the adjustment strap broke, which was fine because I never was going to wear this hat anyway. And I don't dare. And plus, too, this is a white hat. But the other thing, too, are these signatures. So I'm just like, yeah, that is the holy coup de grace grail. But then it gets better because then one of my relatives gave me a hat, and it's from 2001, and he got to meet Ken Schrader, and Tom, my relative, ended up sending me some hats, and I accumulated this hat, and I brought it with me, and I said, well, also there's another connection here, is the jacket you were wearing that day at Daytona. You had an M&M's jacket on, and Ken Schrader signed it. You went to the driver's meeting, Dale signed the other side, and you wished him good luck. And unfortunately, both cars ended up colliding with each other at the last lap of this event. Ken Schrader's autograph is on this hat, and if I can have your permission, can you sign the top of it? Frank Muniz signs the top of the M&M set, and there's Kenny Schrader's hat right there. And just to let you guys know that this is not a Kyle Busch hat. There's number 36 right there from 2001. I do have another hat that's from 2000 because the year is on it, but this one is from 2001. And so yeah, so that brought it all home for me right there. So now to have 3 Daytona 500 winners, plus the last year that Bobby Ellison was a driver before he got wrecked. And the irony of that is when Bobby Ellison won that Daytona 500 in this car, his son Davey Ellison got second. And a few years after the collision at Pocono, he got his memory back, but the one thing he can never remember and recall, he can remember the fast finishing tournament and the hotel of the day of the morning of the 500 of 1988, but after that, his mind blanks out, and he has no recollection, no memory whatsoever of his feelings, reaction of him and Davey finished 1-2 of the Great American Race of 1988, which would drive anybody nuts. And so that's pretty big there. And then coming back to this car, I got a certain buddy of mine that has the fender of this car from the graphics of 2002 is still the same, except the decals are different, but it's still the same fender. And on the traveling back home, his brother actually wound up accumulating the fender because he was in the pits that day of the Miller Lite 300 of 2002. And the hood was there of the car. The crew needed the hood. They were going to throw away the other stuff, but this certain guy was like, hey, can I have that fender? And he calls his brother after the event and says, hey, I got a early Christmas present for you. And he hands it to him. And on the traveling home back to his place, a piece of that fender broke off, and he wound up keeping it. And about a few months going into 2020, I was on Facebook at the time, and I was on a Dick Trickle fan page, and this guy posted the fender in his garage. I was like, holy smokes. He says he wasn't going to get rid of it, but he then eventually told me that he had a piece of it, and I was like, can I see that, and could I have that? And we got to meet up, and eventually got to meet the guy. He actually owned at one point in his life a Dan Ryan tribute, well, a Dan Ryan car that Dan actually drove, and then was shown by Kent Eastlick, and but it was pretty awesome. And But definitely pretty impressed with that, and so it was pretty cool hanging out with him. And then he wound up giving me the this piece right here from that fender of that 43 big triple car from 2002, and I saw that there's the other side of it, so you know that it's 5-star fiberglass, and that's pretty neat. And the other piece that he had too was the hinge of the hood that was from that car to the fender, that also broke off, and he wanted to give me that to Rich Bickle. So Rich has a piece of it, and my buddy has the whole side, and then the third piece is with me. So that's pretty neat. And I talked to my buddy one time and said, now just curiosity, if I happen to lose this one piece, is there a possibility or chance that I could replace it with another? He's like, no way. And so I know exactly where I keep this. I have a mega huge paper clip that I use for the photo of this photo here to hold it in, and then in front of that photo I have this little white piece sitting in front of it to know where it is at all times, and I haven't lost this, nor will I ever. So I definitely got to keep that. And now going back to the year of 2001 to really bring this all home, I was very fortunate a few years ago to come across this certain item on eBay, talk the seller down from a big amount of money to a lesser amount, and about a 10-page text paragraph of the contact on eBay, and I managed to get this for a really good deal, way more than I was ever going to pay for it, and there was just no way I was going to pay for that amount. But I wanted to swing, and I batted and rolled a 7. Here's the back of this, and when I flip this over, you know this is a real deal right here, because this is what came with it. There's a certificate of authenticity. And now when you see this, you know this is legit. I'm about the very last year and the first time of February speed weeks of 2001, when Dale had probably about 10,000 of these postcards in a major stack. There was a lot of these on eBay, but there was only one that I ever found autographed, and got it for a very lesser amount than I was. It started at 12,000, and I got it down to 200, and that was a pretty good rockin' deal right there. And I saved an amount for that, and used Chris's money for it actually, but I did save a little off to the side as well. But that was pretty good. I saved 100. And then Chris's money got me the other 100 for it, and he actually had it on hold for me too, which is pretty awesome, because he knew how much this means to me. I'm shaking right now holding this, and here's the back of it, and so that's pretty awesome. So very, very fortunate, and I don't know how many of you guys would have the courage to talk a seller down from that amount, but it can be done if you have a lot of patience to do it. This is proof right here. So I'm pretty honored to have this, and it may have been the last one that he autographed. And I asked him, I said, do you remember when you got this autograph? He says it was either, he goes, if it wasn't Saturday, it was certainly on Sunday, and it was during, of course, the pre-race stuff, and coming out of the, it wasn't after the last practice before he got the ride in the pace car with Terry Bradshaw. It was either after the drivers' meeting of 2001 for the 500 that Sunday morning. I'm just like, holy shite. So somewhere in there, he doesn't remember, but he said it either happened then or the second, but somewhere in between, roughly about 24 hours. Somewhere in that window, he got this autograph, and I'm just like, and if you're from that time period, everybody remembers the 2001 pre-race show for that Daytona 500. Not just the fact that it's the last one that Dale ever drove, but because it's Terry Bradshaw, and because the following year Terry had the Bushers that Kerry Earnhardt drove for the Supercuts, Hot Tamales, Janet King 10-10-220 long distance calling car. And that car is very iconic because every time that 12-10-10-220 car either got damaged or blew up, which happened a lot, Darrell Waltrip would chime in and say, Terry Bradshaw's got to call 10-10-911. And I'm just like, that, I mean, I still laugh on this days on those reruns, like, oh man, that's so bad and so dark. But this is why you do it for Dale and Dick Trickle. You gotta wanna, and so that's pretty neat. So this is the big. These are big memento pieces for me, and I'm never gonna see anything like this ever again. But very honored and put myself in very good situations. And if you guys out there have a goal in mind to try to get something vintage, old school, modern that you've been waiting a while to get, back to the moon and stars and back, because don't ever let anybody tell you different, because it can be done. And you just saw I'm living proof of that. So, but see you guys in the next video.